Hi everybody, Matt here and welcome to Simply Strength. The title of today's video, Jealousy is a Disease. So in this video I want to discuss something that I'm sure we've all been guilty of at some point in our lives, jealousy. You know, the feeling of envy and borderline hatred of another human being who you have determined is better than you at something, has more money and or material possessions, has a hotter girlfriend or wife, has more Twitter followers or YouTube subscribers, is more famous than you, etc. etc. I'm here to impart some thoughts on why jealousy is a truly negative force that saps not only your energy, but also your time and resources that will be better diverted into other areas. Let me provide some examples from my own life and simultaneously discuss strategies I've used to almost eliminate jealousy from my thought processes. Those of you currently following a MGTOW paradigm, that's men going their own way, will certainly relate to this video and no doubt agree with some of the aspects that I'm going to talk about. Firstly then, I'll address jealousy from the perspective of male-female relationships. Back when I was in my mid-teens at secondary school, and obviously loaded with testosterone at the time, it was about 6 years prior to my decision to go my own way, and I was still a simpy guy that put pussy on a pedestal. Thankfully I realised the error of my ways, but more on that in a moment. There were about 3 girls in school that I was into at one point or another, with one of them becoming almost an obsession from year 7 to year 10, so that's about 12 to 16 years old. She went out with so many people, and with every new boyfriend she had, douchebags one and all, I got more and more pissed off. There was one occasion when a load of students from my year, and we were 16 at the time, stayed out late over the school fields and managed to acquire some alcohol. We were having a great evening and experimenting as all kids that age do, and she was there with her boyfriend at the time. We were just hanging out. He had a prepubescent voice that kept breaking, and I just remember feeling a burning jealousy at the time. I was jealous of him for what he got to be with, and jealous of her for her ability to make me feel that way. It was as if she was actively doing it to elicit that particular response. By about year 9, I started to develop an attitude of indifference. The abundance mentality that truth over everything is highlighted. Towards the back end of year 10, she actually left the school, and I didn't hear from her for several years. In one of the lessons or classes where we sat near to each other, I remember her saying that she was into me, to her friends. There was a group of about 4 friends, and she admitted this. By this stage, however, I couldn't be sure if it was a joke or ploy, and I could have cared less anyway. She'd been around so many people I just didn't want anything to do with it. It could have been so different, I thought at the time. I'm so glad everything turned out as it did, because years later she added me on Facebook. Despite being only 24 or so, she looked about 34, with wrinkle lines, and I couldn't believe I ever felt that way about her. Closure of the best kind, let me tell you. During this time I'd found that the jealousy would follow me home from school. I was so consumed by it. It took a lot of mental strength at the time to get through this period, not least because hormones are playing havoc with your behaviour, testosterone's working overtime, and everything else. Not long after she left the school, and I was gutted at the time, another girl who was on the fringes of our group started to hang out with us outside school, with another of her friends, and again we were about 16 at the time. We would spend time at different houses, sometimes sleepovers, a few drinks, and all of the stuff that mid-teens usually do. I was told by a couple of close friends that she was into me, and I was going to make a move at one of our gatherings. To my horror, one of the best friends who told me this started getting off or making out with her right in front of my eyes. It was similar to the episode of Friends when Rachel starts getting on with the Italian guy when the lights go out. Not only did I feel a sense of betrayal given their cruel joke, I felt jealousy as well because I was into her at the time. Again, this sapped a lot of my energy and made me miserable for a while, not least because he remained within our social circle and she went with him everywhere. Having to watch them get off with each other in front of me for about 2 years did piss me off somewhat, but like exposure to a poison or a virus, you become immune to it. After our sixth form studies, at the age of 18, both of them went to different universities. I entered the workplace and I've since broke off all contact with the so-called friend. He was arrogant, obnoxious, and although he tried to add me on social networking, I fobbed him off. I can do without these douchebags in my life, you know. She went on to university and by all accounts was an absolute slut, bedding everything with a dick and a pulse. She has since moved back to the town we went to school in, and has moved in, it seems, with a short, fat, balding guy who looks fairly ordinary. This is obviously just hearsay from talking to people over a beer. But revenge once again, and another bullet successfully dodged. It would seem, reflecting on all of this, that there is a correlation between my level of jealousy and prospects for a successful life, as I believe I benefited considerably from these experiences. At around the time these events were transpiring, the jealousy levels were high as it were. And my studies from about year 9 to year 11 suffered. I went from being a straight A student in the first 2 years to becoming very ordinary, even though I had the ability. I instead got into rock music and guitar playing. So much, in fact, that I practiced for hours each and every day once I got in from school, formed a band and suddenly became popular. Instead of hanging around with my friends and the girls who had joined the group and having to look at them making out all the time, instead I locked myself away in the music room at school with the other unpopular kids at the time, but we started making music, and it was very productive. I found that my newfound passion made me totally indifferent towards the girls in school. I was simply swallowed up by enthusiasm and began grafting towards getting better on the instrument. I had lessons for about a year or two, and relentlessly woodshedded. I'd lost an interest in school which was perhaps detrimental in many ways, but I was, in a way, diverting that energy into a hobby, my first real experience of the kind. As truth over everything is discussed, I was invoking sexual transmutation. I found that I didn't care what the girls were doing anymore. I just wanted to get home and play my instrument, learn a new song, or better yet, compose one of my own, and ask my bandmates to learn it or contribute parts. We eventually performed at a school rock show and everyone came along, probably about 100 to 150 people, and I tell you now, the adrenaline, nerves, pressure, and ultimate self-actualization associated with playing live, or succeeding in any field you're passionate about, is infinitely better than any woman can make you feel, in my opinion. However, I was not done with jealousy at this point. I found that I was comparing myself to other guitar players all the time in terms of technique, purely from a technical standpoint, and I guess this is only natural when you are developing. You do need a barometer of your achievement in many ways. However, the determination of how good someone is at playing their instrument is so hopelessly subjective, although I didn't realise this at the time. I would pour endless hours into my playing, but I found that I hit a brick wall. And I think that this almost insecurity was down to my low confidence at the time, partly from aspects of parenting, but also the aforementioned experiences with women. And I'm completely over this now, and I've totally changed my personality and thought processes. Subsequently, all my bandmates had gone off to university. I was without a band and left the guitar behind for several years. About 2 years ago, I picked it up again and still possessed all of my chops, and found it effortless to create endless amounts of riffs and solos. I'm truly enjoying it again, purely because I have so many strands to my life now, and more on this in a moment. It's so easy to get jealous, comparing yourself to others, whether it be at the gym with your lifts, in sport, music, the quality of women you can attract, and so on. How is all this honestly relevant? I had an epiphany after working in the private sector for about 4 years, and decided to go back to university, and this is a topic for a separate video. I was ready to go back to academia and put all of my energy and mental powers into succeeding. I did very well, but at times I was tempted to compare myself to other successful students on the course. What grades were they getting? How were they doing? So on and so forth. However, I trained myself mentally to consider all aspects of character in my assessments of them. I'm now thoroughly enjoying working in research and have a colleague who is 1 year older than me, but much further down the line with his academic qualifications and expertise. Do I feel jealous? No. Do I envy him in any way about any aspect of his life? No. Do I want to learn from him and make use of his vast experience and value him as a friend? Certainly. I value his opinions and advice, and he always has supported words for me. Thus, I consider myself over jealousy for the most part. I used to get so pissed off when I'd see an 8.5 or 9 walking down the street, holding hands with a guy that looked like his face had met with the wrong end of a shovel at speed. But now I really could give a shit, and this is where MGTOW comes in. Why would I get jealous of someone over one of my pursuits, when I have innumerable passions and hobbies? I'm fortunate not to be encumbered by the bullshit in life for the most part, i.e. relationships, children, and so forth. Thus, my time, the greatest resource available, is free to invest in so many areas. Instead of chasing girls and pointless pussy without getting anywhere, I now plunge my energy into work, reading, playing and composing music, writing books, doing book reviews, playing a number of different sports, cricket, weightlifting, javelin throwing, creating videos for YouTube, hanging out with true friends, watching movies, playing video games and much more. I'm striving towards being a true polymath, the epitome of a Renaissance man, and whilst I'm not arrogant enough to think I'll achieve that, and I know that the journey is lifelong and hard, I know full well that I can put in the graft and hard work to succeed and ultimately leave nothing on the bar. So, whenever anybody with particular insecurities puts me down, which isn't very often, I simply shrug it off, because I know that for the most part the hobby, pastime or pursuit that they are comparing is probably their sole area in life, whereas I have a whole host of activities constituting so many strands of my existence and personality. Why be so insecure about it when you are living the fullest life you can and truly fulfilling your potential? This is the power of MGTOW. More than anything, it is a truly powerful philosophy for self-actualization and personal development. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I urge you to explore my other videos and stay tuned for further content. I'd also stress that you should investigate the many other great MGTOW video creators on YouTube. I'd love to hear your comments, thoughts and perspective down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you found this video useful and would like to help me continue to make the best videos possible, please check out my Patreon page. Thank you and take care.